Yeah, let the big dog hunt. Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Kallas and Marks with your host, Joe Staszak, and of course, my esteemed co-host, Steve Kallas, Johnny Kallas, wrapping up the NFL regular season. How you doing, boys?
We're good. The playoffs are underway.
Underway. Can't
All
can't
good.
wait. I do lament the loss of the regular season, but it's going to be fun. Let's look back before we look forward. It seems like there's a game of the year every week, which kind of dilutes the moniker. But Ravens and Steelers, 27 points in like the last few minutes of the fourth quarter. With the division on the line, you had Lamar Jackson, slinging it with Aaron Rodgers. Of course, there were guys wide open. It wasn't like, he was threading needles. And then Baltimore, I mean, Isaiah Likely made one of the catches of the franchise's history for the Ravens there to put them in a position to kick the game-winning field goal, and they missed. And so a team that started 1-5 did not make the playoffs, came close. Steelers move on. What'd you think about that shootout, Steve?
Well, I think it was. I mean, I you knew the Ravens were the favorites because of what Henry had done the week before, and I thought they did a pretty good job on Henry. When you look at it after the game, he's got 20 carries for 126 yards, so that's pretty good. But the week before, he had 36 carries for 216 yards and four touchdowns. So to me, they never really got him going that well. Certainly not a lot of big runs. And what I thought, and I think I texted with Johnny during the game, I don't know why they didn't go every time they were going to throw the ball. Why didn't they go play action to hand it off to Henry? And he comes out. Look, I know that's taking a beating
Maybe
doing
because
what
Zay
he's done.
Flowers had like 9 yards on his defender.
Yeah, well,
It seemed like, it seemed like.
I think you should do that. If you have a guy like Derrick Henry who's coming off a game like he came off, and he's having, I'll just say, small success, I thought, just watching the game, not even knowing the numbers at the time, you go play action every time you're going to throw the ball, every single time. I think you're going to get somebody who gets suckered or the linebackers come in or whatever. So even though his numbers on paper look really good, I thought that was a key part of the game. And I'll say it again, I don't know why you don't go for every team who's having a good running back, having a good game, or like with McCaffrey on the 49ers, every time he's going to throw it, I think he should fake a handoff to McCaffrey, unless McCaffrey's split out wide, which he is sometimes because he's a real good receiver as well. So I don't know what to say. Lamar made some incredible old-time Lamar plays. I mean, the one time when the two guys had him tackled, that was incredible when he got out of that and threw a touchdown pass like 40 yards downfield in the middle of the field. I mean, it was incredible. But at the end of the day, Aaron Rodgers played real good. Watt, who I think was a minor surprise to play, played real well, got that interception also. But I don't know much about the surgery he had, but to play 3 weeks after or 4 weeks after he had that surgery is incredible. Um, and the final thing I'd say, I thought the key to the game, I thought the difference between winning and losing, in my opinion, was Kyle Hamilton not being able to play. I mean, you lose him, he might be the best safety and corner, depending on where he wants to play in the whole league. And he's been like that since he came into the league. That one year I had to follow Notre Dame every week. He was on that Notre Dame team. He was the best. He was arguably the best defensive player in the country. So a lot of things have to go wrong, and a lot of things did go wrong. But you gave Aaron Rodgers credit: 31 for 47, 294, one touchdown. I think they had the final. You make that stop and go move we call in the streets, just stop and go, and Austin's open by 10 yards because they said they lost the game on a slip because the DB slipped when Austin stopped. He stopped and slipped, and then that's why he was all alone by himself in the end zone or on the 5 yard line, wherever he caught the ball. So, good win for the Steelers. I don't know how they do it. Johnny and I haven't thought much of the Steelers all year, but we haven't thought much of the Ravens either. And at the end of the day, what we talked about, the Chiefs aren't the Chiefs, the Lions aren't the Lions, and the Ravens aren't the Ravens. And the notion that all three of them, none of them can make the playoffs is still just unbelievable, even after they got beat to make the playoffs.
Johnny, win or lose, does it matter? Either of those two teams up and down all year and had their problems. The Ravens sometimes can't get out of their own way. Tyler Loop misses a kick, hadn't missed one inside 50 all season to win the game. And they go on to play the Texans. Did it really matter who won that game?
I think it matters a little bit because you often see these divisional winners who may not play well during the regular season still have a little bit of success in these wild card games. I remember the Beast Mode game. I think they were 7-9. They beat the New Orleans Saints, who were coming off a Super Bowl victory. So you never know if you have a home playoff game, what will happen. What I think really happened here, what I give Pittsburgh credit for is I thought, they scored 6 points against Cleveland the week before. They're without Metcalf again. And I do think it related deeply to what Steve said, Kyle Hamilton going out. I'm the world's least biggest Aaron Rodgers fan. I'm not a fan at all, but you got to give him credit, man. I mean, he looked like vintage Rodgers on a few of those throws up the seams. Obviously, Austin was wide open, but that's a perfect throw.
Perfect throw.
And I think what happens when you get old is he can still flash his moments of greatness even throughout the course of a game. I think what he can't do is do it every single week. So I picked against the Steelers a lot. I'm not going to pick for them or against them this upcoming week because you got to love that Texans front four. But the Steelers were able to put up, 26 points against the Ravens team without DK Metcalf, and DK Metcalf is far and away their best option. So I think they're live, even though I think you generally have to like the Texans in this one. Just a couple other points I'll make about this game. I think Steve's right about Derrick Henry, but it really was a tale of two halves for Derrick Henry. I think he had 110 of those rushing yards in the first half, and he only had like 10 or 15 in the second half. I think the big flaw for the Ravens is they got off to that quick lead. They went down the field, 7-0, pretty easy. I mean, they converted a big fourth down. This was basically the blown coverage bowl, we might have as well called it, because there were so many guys wide open down the field. But they weren't able to create any separation because I thought Lamar played pretty poorly until the fourth quarter, where he did look like MVP Lamar. He ends up making a great throw and catch to Likely. Lamar kind of did whatever he could, and Likely, who I was happy for Likely because he's had a lot of really weird,
He's had
bizarre
some weird stuff go on with that
go
ball and
against
the
him.
catch and
Just a beautiful,
Christmas. Yeah.
great high point cat. I don't know, Jalen Ramsey. I know they played a lot better since he's moved to safety, but Jalen Ramsey got burned a couple times in this game playing that safety position, including on that play. He totally mistimed it. And then I think with Loop, it's really interesting. Just a quick point I want to make. I'd love to see a kicker talk about the psychology, if there's a psychology with this. Is it a difference when the kick is win lose versus tie lose? Because every Ravens fan in the world is happy that Boswell misses his first or second extra point in 4 years. But then I think it puts almost a little bit more pressure on Loop because, you make a kick if you're down three, then you still have to go into overtime. The entire game comes down to your leg when it's win lose like it did when they're down two. And I thought he hit it pretty good, but he just obviously shanked it right. And that's a tough way. And Baltimore, and you could see this in Lamar after the game. They've had a back-to-back brutal ways of ending seasons here. And it's going to be a long off season for them. We'll have to see Harbaugh. You assume that he's coming back, but you never know in the NFL.
Well, if you saw Henry, they had a close-up of Henry, and you could see just by reading his lips, he said he missed it and had a look of, how could he miss it? But I will say this, um, Boswell had made 90 extra points in a row, seasoned veteran. Might be right with the win, Joe, but some of these kickers, when they kick it, it just kind of fades off. And Tyler Loop, I have newfound respect for Tyler Loop because after the game, I saw a brief interview with him, and he was actually breaking down things about a kicker that we never hear talked about where his angle is and where his foot is. And I think he said he wants to hit it on the fourth seam on the football when it's turned around, though. But it was very interesting, and I give him credit because he stood there and took all the questions. Although, if you're on his team and that costs you a playoff berth, and you don't really know the guy, he's only been there a year, he's a rookie. You know the thing. Oh, he's a kicker. Ugh, he's a kicker. But it is kind of sad. I think Johnny is right. If it's to lose the game. That must be in your
More
head.
pressure
And
on him.
even
Not
though even though he hit it well though, Johnny, I thought it was kind of wide right off his foot. This wasn't like
Definitely,
one.
definitely. I'm
It
just
just
saying Boswell didn't hit it well. Boswell's, it just wasn't tight off the leg. I don't know and it just faded right. Loop, it was right off his leg, but I mean that thing would have been good from 65 yards, but
yeah,
obviously he just
he
shanked it
banged
right.
it.
and the one final thing from me, Joe, is You know the numbers with Tomlin. I mean, he always has a winning record and this and that and blah blah blah. And they did make the playoffs, but there was some talk if they had lost this game. He has lost his last six playoff games.
I guess they get boat raced in the playoffs since
Yeah,
like
and I think
2015.
they're in trouble. I think, we've talked about teams you don't want to play, and the Texans is one of those teams you
I
don't want
think
to play.
so. I think that's going to not going to be much of a game. Let me just one last thing. I mean, John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl, but also Johnny, you mentioned some real heartbreaking losses to end their seasons. Which was worse, the Tyler Loop miss or the Billy Cundiff 32-yard miss against the Patriots in 2011? I threw that to you for a reason.
Look at them laughing. Look at them laughing.
Kind of missed because it was, the championship game as opposed to week 18 of effectively the playoff game of the regular season. But yeah, I actually thought about that right when it happened. That's the second time that sort of brutal type of loss has happened to the Ravens. Though I think that would have been the tie. What's interesting about that, I'm going back in history and I'll just keep this brief, is they actually had I forget if it was Torrey Smith or who, they had the ball in their hands to win the game, and Sterling Moore, I think it was,
You're right. Yeah, he
broke it up
broke it up,
at the
broke up
last
the play.
second.
That was a great play by Sterling Moore.
Great play, great
Great
play.
play.
The Patriots lost to Steve's Giants, so a couple weeks later, but that's all
Wow.
right.
Ancient history now, though. That's the problem.
Exactly. All right. Now let's talk about a game that is obviously, hindsight is what it is, and the people are. There's kind of a divided faction here in Philadelphia because the Eagles had a chance to get the number two seed, but they played their backups who were exposed for being backups, and of course the Bears lost to the Lions. They didn't get the number two seed. They rested their guys. That's what the goal was. So that goal was going to be accomplished either way. But watching the backups play against Josh Johnson, who hasn't started, he started one game since 2001. He's been with like 8 teams in 12 seasons. Had the brain bleed from the concussion. He had to take a few seasons off. And the Eagles actually won the turnover battle, but they did dumb things. Their secondary, four defensive pass interference penalties for 90 yards. If I'm Cliff Kingsbury, as soon as I get across the 50, I'm just chucking it deep because it worked. And the Eagles, they kind of imploded in the fourth quarter. Tanner McKee, in reality, it's his second NFL start, and everyone, talked about the hype behind him because he won last year in the game against the Giants, played well against the Cowboys. Every time he comes in, he plays well. He got worse as the game went on. Guys were dropping ball. The whole thing was a mess. Washington too. I don't know how many procedure penalties they had when they had the ball at the 1 yard line, but anyway, a loss is a loss.
But Joe, if I could ask you though, wouldn't you rather have the number two seed, and wouldn't it have been possible to maybe have these guys on maybe duty? And when they saw that the Bears were losing 16-0, yes, they came back to tie, but still lost. Wouldn't you maybe make a little change? I don't know about bringing Hurts in, but wouldn't you maybe have a little change in your game plan?
Middle of the second quarter, I'm on like 9 threads when I watch football. I said I would at this point it was 13-0 Detroit. I said I'd put all my defensive starters in the game. Put them all in the game. And I got, I hear that coming from the organization that, puts guys in part. What are you talking about? They're dressed, the backups every week are there to play. I'd have put them in. And probably wouldn't have put Hurts in, but I would have put the defensive guys in the game.
I think this
Um,
might come to bite them. This might really come bite them.
well,
And if they
here's the deal.
lose, if
Here's the
they
deal. It
lose,
really
go ahead.
It's about first of all, everything's predicated on beating the Niners, so let's not get ahead of ourselves. If they don't beat the Niners, it doesn't matter. But the second round game would be in Chicago. Okay, they've lost 2 games. They're actually a dog to the Packers, believe it or not. They are a 1.5 point dog to the Packers at home. They've lost 2 games. They had a kind of a must win on, and they lost to Detroit. It wasn't even that close as the final score indicated. So if the Packers do win, they get another home game, and the same thing applies that Seattle, whether the 2 or the 3 seed, they could lose to the Rams, and then you would elevate to the NFC title game at home. So really, it's the second game, and it's playing at Chicago, who hasn't played well. Their defense is horrendous. Eagles travel well.
But Joe,
It's not the end of the world.
isn't the big difference though? To me, the big difference is you're playing the Niners instead of the Packers.
That's correct. That is correct.
Yeah,
The Niners really can't. Their offense has been spectacular. They
that's
scored
what
over 30 points in 3 straight games, but only three against Seattle. And Seattle's defense is for real.
that's strength against
But their
weakness right
defense,
there, man.
they're still hurt. I don't know if Ward's coming back, or they're a little banged up. They're more dangerous than the Pack. Believe me, I don't like Jordan Love a little bit, and the Packers have been reeling. But you're right. Everything's predicated on beating the Niners. They don't beat the Niners, none of it matters. And yes, it would have been a much better, I think, a much better position for them to play the Packers.
And did anyone ask the coach after the game? Did it ever enter your mind maybe you could stick some guys in there once they
Yeah,
were
oh
down?
yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I got a lot. Well, he didn't say anything to me, but my idea and your idea got really torched because they asked him that question. He said, "No, we're not going to put guys in peril. I don't know what that means. They're dressed. Put them in the game." I mean, Reed Blankenship tried to go into the game in the first quarter, and someone grabbed him and said, "No." You know what I
Really?
mean? Yeah. So
Wow.
yeah, they had guys ready. A couple guys played. Jordan Davis like played the whole game. Um, the defensive line, they look gassed. Look, they're not used to game action and play. They played the whole game, and the Commanders had a 9-minute time of possession advantage. So they were on defense was on the field a long time. They looked gassed at the end. The secondary was horrific. I don't know if you watched the Kaylee Ringo play where Johnson did a sprint left bootleg and had some option, and no one's in front of him, and
Oh,
Ringo has him, and then he turns around to go get his receiver and lets him walk into the end zone.
yes.
I don't know if it was horrific, horrific performance. That's why they're backups. But yeah, Steve, I said the same thing. I mean, why not? But apparently, rest, versus the chance of injuring guys. The offensive line has been not good this year, and I know they were banged up, Cam Jurgens and Landon Dickerson. So if it gives them an extra week, we'll see. The Niners defense, I know they only gave up 13 points to Seattle, but before that, they were giving up in the last previous 3 games before that 30 points a game. Um, it's not a good defense, although, like you said, Johnny, Jordan Love versus a really hot Brock Purdy. And the Niners, I think, are just more explosive, and the Packers, it would have been a better seed. But you never know. Packers could win in Chicago. Eagles could win at home. They haven't lost at home under Nick Sirianni in his tenure in the playoffs. So, but again, we're getting ahead of ourselves probably by overlooking San Francisco and talking about. I'm talking about myself, and I'm writing articles about this. I'm like, oh wait, they have to get past round one. But what do you think of that decision that Sirianni made, and what did you think about how it played out, Johnny?
Well, I mean, look, Sirianni is right. The one thing you can control is what you do. And of course, this could have ended up totally different, and the Bears could have won the game, and you could have had,
There'd be no one talking about it.
yeah, but or somebody, everybody would be talking about it, and Saquon Barkley could have been lost for the year, or this could have happened, or that
Right,
could have
right.
happened. So that's the flip side. I do agree. I assume defensive guys are dressed. It's football, so you can't just like in basketball not dress guys for the most part, because you need to have 40 whatever guys
Right.
active. Um, so I kind of like that idea. If you're going to play one side of the ball, I think it's easier for defensive guys who weren't expecting to play to go in and play than have Jalen Hurts. AJ Brown. Though, look, once again, Devontae wanted to get his 1,000, and Devontae gets his 1,000, right? So there's a lot of what are we really prioritizing here? Devontae wasn't the only guy this week who played more than probably he should have
Hmm.
to get a certain milestone. I don't know if there were incentives laden with that at all.
There
Um,
had to be. Otherwise, what does anyone care? I mean, like, you know what I mean? Like, I know it's good for the next contract negotiation, but
yeah,
other than that, listen, you didn't play Saquon. You didn't want to get him hurt. Like, the first 4 passes went to Devontae Smith. I'm
yep,
surprised they
yep,
didn't
yep,
triple cover, triple team him, knowing
yeah,
that, you know what I mean? They got
yeah.
lucky that he made this great catch and got his 44 yards and got him out of the game.
But I just think, to me, actually, I understand everybody's talking about the round two game. I think Philly can go into Chicago and win. I actually think the round one game playing SF versus Green Bay is bigger. I think what you have now, and I know you guys will preview the games later in the week, but you have strength versus strength, weakness versus weakness. The Eagles' offense has been pretty bad. The Niners' defense has been bad. The Niners' de offense has been great. The Eagles' defense has been great. So. I know the Bears are really happy because I know the Bears wouldn't have seen the Niners would score 40 something on the Bears
Yeah,
if they
which they
ended up
did a
playing.
couple weeks ago.
Yeah, yeah. So the Bears are the happiest team that they get to play a Packers team that hasn't won in 100 years. Micah Parsons is out.
They
Jordan
haven't
Love.
won since Parsons went down.
No, that's what I'm saying. So I actually think to me the bigger, I think Philly can go into Chicago. I understand, if they go into Chicago and lose, but to your point, Chicago may not even win. The bigger implication is you have to play. I think, a much better, I understand the deep, but a much better team in round one. But my only defense of Sirianni is he controlled, and he said this, he controlled what he can control. He couldn't control the outcome of the Bears game, though in hindsight it looks like a bad decision.
And I just want to say one thing, Joe, about the Seattle 49ers game. I watched the whole game, and we'll see if Johnny agrees with me. It reminded me a little bit because it was just out of the norm to me. It reminded me a little bit of when the Patriots beat the Rams 13-3, and I remember saying to Johnny, they'll look at the scores of the Super Bowl 50 years from now. They'll look at this 10-year period and it'll be what happened in that game that was 13-3 because everything else was a high-scoring game. I thought this was going to be a relatively high-scoring game. See, the Seattle, of course, they have a great defense, but the 49ers were averaging 35 a game for the 6 games Purdy was back. And then when the game started and the 49ers couldn't run the ball, McCaffrey couldn't run the ball, which like never happens, but we know how good Seattle is, especially up front. But the 49ers scored 3 points. It's their lowest amount in the game since week one of 2017. So you didn't expect that to happen. And they do have a good offense. Seattle's running the ball really well. I think they're a Super Bowl contender after watching that game. But Saleh did finally bring some blitzing, and Darnold doesn't like that. His numbers are good, I think, okay nowadays, 20 for 26, but 198 yards. But I give Seattle credit, a lot of credit. And I just thought it was one of those, as it turns out, Johnny, defensive struggles.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that maybe you thought before that game with the Rams and the Patriots in the Super Bowl that it was going to be a defensive struggle because all the Super Bowls and certainly all the play in the last few years has really been more about putting points on the board. But when you see a defense like Seattle's, in my opinion, hold the 49ers to 3 points, and I assume we'll get later on, but at some point you got to look at the teams with the really, really good defenses, including the Eagles who can win the Super Bowl because the 49ers, unless they improve drastically, now they did play well on defense, solid blitz more than I've seen them blitz this year. And don't forget how good he was when the 49ers were a better team, I thought, 3, 4, 5 years ago, before he went to the death knell that is the Jets, and people go
Well,
there. Coaches go there to get fired, but I'll just leave it to you then on that, Johnny. But I think Seattle has great defense and can run the ball
yeah.
and that travels. We'll see if Darnold can be big in a big spot.
And they're playing home, but that I think is your big key. I mean, look, if you like defenses and you believe that front fours can win Super Bowls, which they have multiple times, I think you're looking at Seattle, Philly, Denver, Houston are your four teams. Now, some of those are more favored than others. Seattle, obviously, 12th man's going to be a factor. They're going to be home. But there was some fluky things that happened. Christian McCaffrey, I know that ball gets tipped. He usually doesn't drop that pass, and that ends up being a one score, probably a 3 point game. And
True.
then Sam
Yep.
Darnold's under a little bit of pressure. I still did Darnold get over the hump? Well, the defense gave up 3 points. So in a tight game, now granted, they beat the Rams, they came back a week before. And that's another thing about Seattle's defense. They gave up 400 and whatever passing yards to Matt Stafford. I think that was in Seattle too. They ended up winning the game. Then they give up 3 points to the hottest quarterback in football and the hottest offense in Purdy. So look, the Seahawks have the bye. They have the one seed. I'm still not sold on Darnold, but if you're looking for teams with those defenses, they're one of, I think, four that have those defenses that can play at that elite level. We saw Philly do last year. We saw Tampa do. We saw New England do in 2018. Saw Denver do in 2015, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I'm not sold on Darnold either. I need to see it in the playoffs. Okay, yeah, he played sound. And I think the game plan was for him to play sound against the Niners. But probably against the NFL, anything can happen. I know the Panthers beat the Rams a few weeks ago. Probably not going to happen again. So the Rams are probably going to play Seattle again, and they lost on that fluky 2 point conversion. They were up 16 late. No one's really talking about the Rams anymore. How dangerous are they as a six seed? They've been a little up and down the last few games. They lost two in a row. I know they beat the Cardinals. Matt Stafford came back from a three interception game, played well. I would like the Rams in that game, to be honest with you. Seattle's defense is very good, but until Sam Darnold wins a big playoff game and maybe takes down Matt Stafford, a future Hall of Famer, I'm not buying it yet. Anyone?
Yeah, they have too many great players, not to, and I think that they're the 5 seed going to Carolina. That's
Five seed. I'm sorry, you're right.
I think they, first of all, I know Carolina beat them. They're far and away the heaviest favorites in this. I don't know if you guys saw the spreads, but they're the only, I think, big favorites this weekend, I think. Um, so look, I think they have too many great players, and they actually have a quarterback who's been there and done it, to not take them seriously, to not be worried about them. And I think it is setting up, assuming that this is a little bit of an assumption, Joe, assuming that both Philly and Chicago win, it is setting up that Rams Seahawks matchup. But if either the Niners or Packers win, then the Rams are going to that second game because and obviously they reseed. So I think you're right. I think that'd be a fascinating matchup. I think I would pick the Rams in that matchup, especially coming off a win, especially considering what Stafford did to that defense in Seattle just a few weeks ago. And I assume Devontae is going to be back. I mean, they have too many playmakers not to take them seriously, I think, in the playoffs, even though they're the team that's sort of fallen off a little bit the last month or so.
I did want to speak briefly, if I could, Joe, about this whole thing with the Panthers and the Bucks and the Falcons. I've said it not a lot
Panthers
because,
lost their last two games and they got in.
yeah, I mean, but my pet peeve has always been going back. Wasn't it Tim Tebow who had a sub 500 record and won a playoff game that
I
one
think they were
year?
8-8.
The Seahawks did with beast mode that one year.
Yes,
They
they
were sub
did.
500.
Yeah, I think there should be a rule, and this is the perfect example. You got three, eight, nine teams, and somehow one of them is in the playoffs with a home field advantage. I think there should be a rule, and I know I'm living in a dream world, but there are so many better teams than these teams who aren't in the playoffs. I think if you're under 500, which you can now be with a 17 game season, I guess you could be, if you have a tie, that you could have been 500. But I think if you're under 500 in a division, and nobody is at 500 or better, I don't think you should be in the playoffs. And I think they should take the team with the best record in the whole league who's not in the playoffs. And then if there's a tie for that, which there often is, then you could have tiebreakers. But I don't see why any of these teams, other than what the rule has been, not only are you 8 and 9, not only do you make the playoffs, but you get a home game. That's absurd. That's absurd. So I think there should be some kind of penalty. And I think if there's, this is what I think, but it'll never happen. If there's no team at 500 or better, and I would say better now in the 17 game schedule, nobody makes the playoffs from that division. And you give it to the best record of teams who didn't. And if there's two or three tied, you could always have in the division or in the conference or in the whatever to make it a fairer pick. The problem with football for me, unlike baseball, of course, the problem is there's no playoff game to get into the playoffs. You can't do it. That's just the nature. Earl Weaver, this ain't football. We do this every day. That's why you can have playoffs in baseball. Although we've talked about that during baseball season, Joe, where the team that doesn't play in the first round is often disadvantaged, even though they had a better record than the teams that are playing in the first round. And that's come true a number of times already in baseball. But I think in football, I don't see why you should be rewarded if you're in the crappiest division by far. And you literally have three teams that are 8 and 9 in a four-team division. I
I
think
think
that
you should for I like that, but I think you should get into the playoffs if you win your division, but force them to go on the road. That'd be good. Force the sub
Well,
500
you don't get the
going.
automatic.
So Carolina goes to LA and where the Rams will be
well,
17
then
point favorites or whatever.
right, instead of 10, it'll be 15 or
It's
something.
10. I'm looking at that Bears line. Actually, Bears are now a 1.5 favorites. So that line swung a little bit. Interesting stuff. We didn't talk much about the AFC. Who's going to come out of that? I like the Texans defense. I mean, although they almost lost to the Raiders when it still mattered, but that's a very swarming defense. And they started the season 0-3, went on a tremendous run, and they are playing the Steelers. They're a 3-point favorite on the road. CJ Stroud, hasn't been as good as his rookie year, but with that defense, they've been pretty impressive. Steve, what are your thoughts on the Texans coming out of the AFC?
Just on that list of teams you don't want to play.
Mm-mm.
I mean, I didn't watch that game, but the Colts put up 30. I assume the Texans didn't play most of their defensive guys because
Well, once
38.
Jacksonville had like a 30-point lead, it was over.
Yeah, I think the Texans can make a run, but you're right about CJ Stroud. I mean, we thought, Johnny and I thought his second year he was going to be unbelievable. He was terrible. I guess that was the sophomore slump. And is he better now? Yeah, he's better than last year, but I don't think he's as good as his rookie year. but that defense is going to carry him. And I know he's on your list of elite defenses. So I think they can make some noise. I don't want to play the Texans.
Johnny, how dangerous are they?
Dangerous because of their front four. I mean, look what they did to Josh Allen. Remember that game? 8 sacks. You don't sack Josh Allen 8 times. So they can go in and beat anybody, anywhere. I think their defense will travel. I think even though they're a warm weather team, they can play in cold, which they may have to against Denver or potentially New England in round two, depending on how things shake up. Yeah, AFC, I think. I mean, look, wide open both conferences. Denver barely got by a Kansas City team on their third string quarterback a week ago, and then they play a Charger team that, sat everybody. So I think Denver, even though they're another team with a great defense, is far from a lock. Um, my only hiccup about New England, because I like the combination of great quarterback and, I don't think New England has a great defense. I think they have a good defense, and they're getting guys like Milton Williams healthy at the right time of the year. Um, but they haven't, I'll be the first to admit, I know a lot of Patriot fans get personal when this comes up, but they haven't played anybody. They haven't played anybody with a defense as good as the Chargers, never mind Houston or Denver. So this isn't necessarily an automatic this weekend. But I do think if Drake May shows he can do what he's done in the regular season in the playoffs, which he's never been there, so we'll have to see it. That's a dangerous team, man, because that's the best quarterback in football right now, or one of the two or three best in quarterbacks in football, with a good, maybe not great defense in a conference that's wide open. So, Denver, New England, Houston, those are the three teams I'm looking at, but it's hard to pick one.
Well, Johnny, what about Spillane? Is he coming back or no?
He's been out for a while. They've been sitting him, but you're right. It's been like 4 weeks now. The idea was for him to be healthy a couple weeks ago. He was their leading tackler. I would think he's back for the playoffs, but I'm not sure. He's not on IR. One big loss they had was Mac Hollins. Mac Hollins played more snaps for them than anybody from their wide receiver room because he's so good in the run game, and he actually had a good year catching the ball. But he's out at least the first 2 weeks of the playoffs, and that's a big loss when you get against good defenses like the Chargers, etc.
Well, I like the Patriots because not because of you, but because Herbert was so horrific in that playoff game last year, and it was against the Texans, right? Four picks. Um,
Four picks.
that I lost a lot of respect for him, but he's had a really good year. He's a really good player, but we'll see. Even you can talk about Drake May in his first playoff game, but Herbert has not been a good playoff quarterback. And they have the crazy Harbaugh. That's how I differentiate them. The crazy Harbaugh is the crazy Harbaugh. And but I think I do like the Patriots because they are getting back at least one, if not, hopefully Spillane can play. I don't know if we'll hear about that or not, but
Hopefully Landry can play too. The Chargers' offensive line is a mess. I mean that they're hurt and they're not too good to begin with. So that's another. I
and
think
Herbert, as good as he is, he does get sacked a lot. So, we'll
does.
see what happens. But I think I won't say the Chargers are a team you don't want to play. I won't even say the Patriots are a team you don't want to play, although I probably would put them at the bottom of that list because you just don't know what's going to happen next week. But I think he's going to be fine. I think he's the MVP. I think Drake May, and that's not a bias. I think he's the MVP. And I think Stafford kind of lost it with that three-pick game. And when you look at the numbers of what May's done, right? He wound up leading the league in completion percentage, right? And QB rating, whatever that rating is. He led them in a lot of things that second year players really don't lead them in.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say is Stafford ended up taking over the favorite, even though he beat a pretty bad Cardinal team. I think it's because he threw 4 touchdowns. Stafford ended the year 46 touchdowns, 8 picks. May 32 touchdowns, 8 picks. So if you just look at touchdown to interception ratio, you're going to go at Stafford. If you look at the more analytical numbers, then May definitely has the edge. But strength of schedule, supporting cast,
Well, you're right.
updates, right?
Yeah.
So Black Monday is come and gone. I think there's 4 or 5 coaches who've been whacked already. What do you have to do to get fired if you're the Jets head coach? No, no, former defensive back, 0 interceptions, first time ever, 0-6 in the division, didn't put up a lot of fight late in the season. Excuse
I'll
me?
tell you why. I'll tell you why they love the guy. They loved him as a player. They loved him as a coach. Hard to say it was totally his fault, although they did fire Pete Carroll after a similar kind of year. and
So
Pete Carroll
because they're
probably going to
they're amorous towards the coach, and it's okay to go 3 and
the
14,
players
and
love him, the fans love him. Now I don't know if the fans loved him towards the end of the year now because it got really ugly.
they
Uh,
like a 3. They love a 3 and 14 record. What about that kid
That
that said? What
the
about that kid
Jets.
you sent me that video? The kid said, "I want to kill myself," or "I hate this team," or something. I forget what he said.
hey,
It's bad in Jets land.
The Jet fans are diehard Jet fans, but I'll say it again: the guys who were around when he played, they loved him. He was a good player. He was a hard-nosed player. Uh, but I think it's a one-year pass, and I don't know who their quarterback's going to be next year. I think they picking second in the draft. I think they're second in the draft now. By the way, you guys probably know this. If the Giants won and the Raiders lost, I mean, if the Giants lost and the Raiders won, which is what, well, half of that happened, the Giants would have got the number one pick. So all we had to do was lose one of those two games. But we managed to win them both. Look out for us next year, Joe. We're 2-0 last two games.
Yeah, you almost lost. You won by 28 over the Raiders. I don't know if they got the memo that maybe they should have pulled off a little bit.
I want to know if Crosby's going to ask for a trade. I think if I was him, I would ask for a trade.
Brock Bowers is like the only guy on that team worth a damn. I mean, except for Max Crosby,
And
but yeah,
Crosby, yeah.
I'd probably,
Genty might be okay down the road. We'll see.
yeah. Anything else, boys, before we wrap? And obviously, we're going to preview next weekend's game. Buffalo, kind of up and down. They put a lot of points on the Jets. They play at Jacksonville. 13 wins this year by a Jacksonville team, and they smoked the Titans, and the Titans are pretty bad. Where do we before we leave? I did want to ask, what do we think of Jacksonville? Trevor Lawrence seeming like he's coming into his own with the new coach and whatever, and there might be some friction between them, but um, they're on the same page at least, on the field.
I think Buffalo can win that game because they have, whatever you think of their playoff, they have incredible playoff experience. They're not going up against Mahomes and the Chiefs when the Chiefs were Mahomes and the Chiefs. And I think they have a big chance to win, but it's also, finally for Trevor Lawrence, it's kind of the coming out season, if you will. And I think that's going to be an interesting game. But based on experience, playoff experience, I mean, you don't want to play the Bills, although they've been another team that's been up and down this year. I thought their defense has been much better since they got Milano back like 3 or 4 weeks ago. And I think he's been the key to their defense for, 8, 10 years, however long he's been there. Uh, and we'll see if Josh Allen still can become Superman, because I think he can become Superman. And so if I had to pick that game, and I assume we'll talk about that Friday or Saturday, Joe, we picking every game or just three games? I don't remember in the
Pick
playoff.
as many games as you want.
But I kind of like the Bills in that game, but it's based on experience. It's not necessarily based on play on the field this season.
Johnny, your thoughts?
The Bills are tough because they really structure their team to beat Kansas City. They're small on defense. Steve's right. With Milano back, they have been better, but they are small on defense. They're terrible at stopping the run. They have no playmakers on the outside. James Cook had a great year, and Allen is Superman. Can they do that for 4 games? I think that's a big if, and I think it's hard to win Super Bowls when your defense can be that bad at times.
Can they do it for one game though, Johnny? Can they
Oh
do it?
yeah, yeah. I think that's probably the toughest game to pick. I think that's toss up. I don't know what the line is. It has to be maybe Bills 1.5, I
I
would
think that's
guess.
right.
I don't know because of Josh Allen respect. Allen, he keeps his starting record. He's done this 2 years in a row where he just plays a snap in the final game, which is a little bizarre to me. But I think it's good he got some rest. He was far from 100% the last time we saw him. I know Philly's defense is great. I'm not trying to take anything away from him. Allen just, not having a pass when you're outside the pocket complete is not Josh Allen. But yeah, so I think